Welcome back on into the TitleTown Rundown podcast here on YouTube. Joey Matroni alongside Kyler Quelch, and we are very excited to be joined by Jack Lawhorne of the Jacked Up podcast for our dedicated episode to Merrimack Athletics, and we're gonna kind of take a year in review out of what this set of seasons has been like for the Warriors, because it's been some of the best that we've seen in terms of around campus, and especially as it comes to athletics. Jack, I wanted to start actually with how this most recent semester ended. I know you had the chance to sit down with current athletic director for Merrimack, Joe Foley. I wanted to ask you kind of what that was like, and you were able to kind of get into his head about what he is envisioning for Merrimack and how this set of seasons has gone for him, especially with the big success that was men's hockey and men's basketball.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. So, I mean, first, I just want to give credit to Joe because I think in past years, my first few years at Merrimack, it would have been impossible to talk to the athletic director on a podcast. So it was amazing. He was super, welcoming, and I was super grateful to even be given that time. And I think just the biggest thing I've taken away from Joe, and we talked about it for sure, is just the improvement in the process, like between the athletic communications, the athletic department as a whole. He really took it to the next level, and so many other people like Sean McGuire. And that's really my biggest takeaway. And of course, we talked about his transition. He's been at schools like TCU, Boston College, Penn State. Like he's had a tremendous run, so he has so much experience playing or being a part of championship collegiate athletic programs. And I think he's just my biggest takeaway was just what he's taken from his experiences there to North Andover.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, Kyler, I know you can speak to this as well. We've seen kind of the growth that comes with Merrimack athletics as a whole, and this is a new challenge for Joe Foley and all of the other coaches in the athletic programs in general. They're making strides towards becoming a more noticeable Division One program. Obviously, in years past, they've made the transition from Division Two to Division One, I should say, and they are starting to see some Division One success, and we saw that mostly highlighted this year.
Yeah, I'd also say that I've seen a lot of improvement as well. I know Jack can speak to this as well, but like my first couple years as well, my freshman year and sophomore years, we really were having a tough time competing. There were a lot of people at Merrimack who were like, if the sports are going to be this bad, like how are we, like, is it really worth it? And in addition to other things at Merrimack that were kind of going downhill, and I think we found a way to sort of cut through those growing pains. I mean, there still are growing pains with being a growing institution, but we bought Royal Crests. We saw that Foley, in particular, did a lot more promotional things and a lot more interactive things with the students, and I think that was a huge part of it. Jack, in your experience, like, what are other things that you saw that you really liked throughout the year?
So I'll tell a quick story. So my sophomore year at Merrimack, my advisor at the time, Sam Bruno, she got me an internship with the athletic communications department, and it was 5 or 10 hours a week, a couple in the office, a couple of game days setting up, usually on the weekends. So I would go to the men's volleyball games on the weekends and help set up the gym, set up the broadcast, do stats sometimes. And then like a day or two per week, I would go there into the office and just, be an assistant, another body, another hand in the department to get work done. Whether it be editing, the Merrimack Athletics site, specifically the rosters and player bios, or putting together the stats for newsletters and releases. But the thing is yes, I would do that sometimes, and it was cool. It was cool. It was good experience. But half the time before, I go in for the shift, they'd text me and they'd say, "Hey, don't worry about coming. We don't need help today." Um, and then when I would go in, I would do the work, but then they'd be like, "Oh, you can go," even though half like I would do the baseball player bios, and then they'd be like, "Okay, I just do half of them. That's fine," and then leave the rest blank. It doesn't matter. And you look at the football roster, and the player bios would just be completely empty, and the stats would be either not there or wrong or whatever. And so it was a little weird. You could just tell the athletic department was one, overworked. I want to give them their credit; those guys were overworked, but it was just the program was in dysfunction. But ever since Joe Foley came in, I mean, it's been unbelievable. And since Chuck Scott came into the communication media department, Sean McGuire coming in, bridging those gaps in athletic comms, even Alex Nelson last year, who was super responsive and helpful to anything students needed. It was just not like that before. You reach out to those athletic comms guys, and you're probably not going to get an answer. And if you get an answer, it's like, no, we can't help you. We don't want to help you, whatever it may be. But ever since these people came in, and I got to give credit to, Jake Turner from the comm side of things, and then just, the higher ups in the athletic department, bringing in guys like Chuck, like Sean, like Joe, like everything's changed. I've gotten as a student, I can speak to, and the teams. I mean, that's a whole nother story. The hockey's championship, basketball's on the rise, but just the student experience has improved so much for passionate students like us trying to make our way in the sports comm world. Like, students are getting opportunities to play-by-play broadcast, to do podcasts, to write stories, and that never happened before. So got to give the credit to the people in the comms department, like I said, Jake, Chuck, Mish, everyone. So Merrimack and Joe Foley is a huge part of that. The athletics have just skyrocketed.
Yeah, I can attest to that as well. It's been great to kind of see firsthand how the athletics have grown in the first 2 years that I've been a student at Merrimack, and there was a huge jump between my freshman and sophomore years and just what I was able to do. Obviously, Jack, you and I were able to do the first live radio broadcast for men's and men's basketball for WMCK, our Merrimack College radio station. This is where TitleTown Rundown was actually born. So we've now expanded it into the podcast form. But just being able to get that experience and then being able to work with the athletics department and kind of grow what we were able to do within a certain game alongside Sean McGuire, like you said. And it seems like it's been a very positive thing from everyone we've talked to, and hopefully the goal is for it to only grow from there.
We've just sorry, did I just cut out real quick?
There,
But regardless,
you're back now. So
okay, cool. Regardless, yeah,
you're all
I mean,
set.
you see how the athletic teams are performing. We took the step up into D1 less than a decade ago, about a half decade ago. And we've had tremendous success. We haven't made March Madness yet in basketball, but we've taken a step in a conference first up, and we've won a conference. We should have been eligible, but some gateway rules. You gotta be a Division I program for 4 or 5 years before you're eligible. I think it's coming. I think it's coming. Joe Gallo, he's back. I mean, that's just the basketball team. And then you talk about the Hockey East Championship for the first time in over 30 years. Like, unbelievable what Merrimack has become athletically.
Yeah, obviously that was uncharted territory in terms of the Hockey East Championship. It was the first time in franchise program history they've been able to get that done. And Tyler and I were talking about it leading up to it. It speaks to kind of the program that a lot of these coaches have been able to build. Kyler and I are talking leading up to it, and Kyler, I'll let you kind of take it from here, but Scott Morick now knows what kind of roster he wants to build, and with the success that was this first Hockey East Championship, he's getting his guys to buy in, and they want to keep building from there.
Yeah, and I guess I'll talk a little bit about this. I know, like, my freshman and sophomore years, especially, I didn't know what direction we were kind of going in. I used to make the joke that I could get behind the bench and win a few more games just by pulling on our best players a little bit more, but because we didn't have the depth, and a lot of the guys ended up getting caught or transferred. I know after my freshman year, a lot of guys transferred to get more playing time, and then my sophomore year, 10 guys got cut, and so I didn't know kind of what direction we were going in, and you start to see some of the core pieces there going into this year with Seamus Powell, Cam Congle, guys who transferred in, and then you have guys like Kalen who came in, as a freshman, and Cranston, and you started to see Pierre, a bunch of guys, O'Connell, who had a bunch of those playoff goals, Deneau, who stayed. He was the guy who was kind of the staple. Him and Max were the two staples. And I remember, and I actually am kind of close with that circle. And I had heard um, kind of some rumblings about, hey, Ty, stay patient. We want you to be the guy who stays and kind of is that leader. And he went through injuries, but in the playoffs, he really stepped up. I've seen how he brought in the right pieces after a few years of really struggling, and the job kind of being on the line, to be honest, for Boric, and how he's starting to just bring in the pieces who both want to be there and fit what we want to do athletically. And I'm seeing that more and more, even off the ice. Like, they're hanging out together. They want to be there and embrace the culture. And you're seeing 18 guys come back for next year. That makes me excited about a possible run next year. And they brought in a goalie from Minnesota State, as well as they're bringing their backup goalie back and bringing in a freshman from Latvia. So I like their goaltender room, even without Max, who I'm going to miss. But yeah, I mean, they've done a really good job of developing that program. And you see that with Joe Gallo as well. I think he's kind of where they were with hockey a few years back, where you have a lot of guys who transfer, but, and aren't able to really stick. I think he's got to find a way of finding the talent that he wants, but also finding guys who want to embrace the program.
Yeah, and I mean, just to kind of build off that from the basketball side, that's something that Jack and I were covering extensively throughout the entirety of the season. And you had guys like Kaveri Kennedy and Ernest Shelton really come on the scene and be that duo that led the Warriors to the MAC Conference Championship before they were eventually topped by Siena. But I think the outcome of that kind of shows you what the current landscape of college basketball is, because Siena gets that conference championship victory, and in a turnaround of that, Jerry McNamara, the head coach, and Gavin Doty both find their way over to Syracuse. McNamara as the new head coach, and Doty follows him to continue to be his top guy. And I think that, and Jack, you can speak to this too a little bit as well, but Joe Gallo knows the type of program he wants to run. He's known for his make chaos defense, and he's going to continue to look for guys that are going to fit that mold. And not only that, but he has areas that he's very comfortable recruiting in, because he's from the New Jersey area, and he has a lot of success also recruiting in the Philadelphia area as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a couple of years ago we had Jordan Durkak. He ended up transferring to Rutgers, right? Going to play with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. We saw Dylan Harper, a 20-year-old rookie in the NBA, dominating the NBA Finals last night. So it's absolutely ridiculous. Durkak was playing with him last year after 2 years ago playing with under Joe Gallo. So it shows you how close we are to just the elite levels of basketball in the world. And then we have Bud Clark, who comes in, and we don't fall off at all when we lose Durkak, because we have Bud Clark. He's top 5 in the country in steals, or I think it was top 6, top 7, whatever it was. But while averaging 20 points, he goes to Seton Hall. They compete for a spot in March Madness. I mean, they don't make it, but they were a contender in the Big East. Had some good wins. And then he goes to Ole Miss. So we're talking about elite Power 5 schools that produce elite NBA players. We're funneling guys into there. So, and now we have Kaveri Kennedy. He goes to the ACC. Ernest Shelton, he goes to the ACC. It's going to keep happening. It does It's a little bit of a blessing and a curse. It's a little bit of a curse for mid-major schools like us who don't have, the financials to keep guys like Kavir Kennedy, Ernest Shelton, Bug Clark. But at the same time, if we've learned anything from watching Merrimack basketball the past half decade, you just know you don't need to panic. You can in Gallo, we trust. He's going to keep bringing in guys, keep developing them, keep passing them on, and keep elevating our program. And we're only on the uprise.
I love his school spirit too, and how he just feeds into the crowd. And they have like Gallows Boys or whatever. His club, and it's like, it just seems to be me like we've really kind of upped also just our interactive like fan base and kind of competing with those major schools.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the fan experience this year was another huge thing. That Joe Gallo and or Joe Foley, I should say, and the athletic department as a whole continue to prioritize. In the season, you mentioned, Kyler, the movement of the student section down to the floor level was awesome to see in terms of atmosphere, especially at the end of every home game, because they finished the season with an undefeated home record, which was great to see. They are becoming more and more comfortable in Lala Arena as the years under Joe Gallo come. But being able to see those students celebrate with Coach Gallo and the rest of the roster, especially for those player interviews, is great. And then we're also promos and such that were put in place to just increase overall attendance from the student body, which I think is an improvement from, Kyler, what you were talking about. In your beginning time at Merrimack, things have definitely improved from the fan engagement standpoint.
What was your favorite moment, Jack, of the year?
My favorite moment of the year was the Siena game. I mean, we got stuff like this. We got mugs. We like everything we had been waiting for years as student reporters covering the team. Joe Foley finally gave it to us.
Yep.
And that game was just so electric. Like, put all the Merrimack, everything aside, that was a great basketball game with a great environment. People on Twitter were calling us the best mid-major crowd and fan community and all that. And it's true. It's true. That atmosphere, that environment was electric, and it went to overtime, and we won in a thriller. Like those are nights we'll never forget. Like, that was a great basketball game, a great
And they had
environment.
great promos that night too. They had,
Amazing.
they had like Italian night, and like they had Augie's on the go prices. So it was definitely meant for people to show up and be loud.
Yeah, and I think that that has given, on the basketball side, it gave them the home advantage all year long. And then on the hockey side, we saw the travel to TD Garden for those games. That environment, even from me watching afar as a fan, was noticeable. And then being able to hear from everyone individually after the fact was even better. And I think that things are only going to continue to get better, and especially with us as students involved in the media space. Going back to that Siena game, that was really the first time we'd been able to go to a press conference after the game, interact with players and coaches, which is a huge part of sports media, just be able to get that experience and comfort. And that was a great time for sure. And I think that we're only going to continue to help in terms of exposure to the success that Merrimack Athletics is experiencing.
And like you said, it really gave the team an advantage. Like, that was such a close game. It ended with, Todd Brogna hitting a three from the corner. We don't win that game without that crowd. We don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
We
think
went
that
undefeated, right, on our home court.
undefeated at home. Yep. So I think the numbers don't lie, is I think what we're getting at. I mean, it has shown that not only are they having success in what is now the Metro Conference after the rebranding happened a couple of weeks ago, but they've continued that success, and um they're rooted in their identity, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And I think the end of this season in particular is a testament to what um, Gallo and his coaching staff are trying to build, because there were plenty of other higher up open opportunities, like we mentioned with Jerry McNamara, that uh, Joe Gallo definitely was in contention for, but he was very um, content to stay and continue building the success of his Merrimack team. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that he and a number of his assistant coaches played for Merrimack in their playing days. And I think that there is a sense of pride that stems all the way from the coaching staff to the students, former players, and everywhere in between.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to add, like Merrimack, we can't financially pay coaches and players like the ACC or the SEC can, or the Big East, whatever it may be. But at the same time, Joe Gallo has a community around him that loves him. And Merrimack is going to take care of him in every way possible. And another thing, he has a proven system like that. It works. He wins. He brings guys in. Guys are going to see that. They have seen that. And they're going to continue to trust him. And young, talented players are going to come. Nothing's going to change. Merrimack's going to keep going on the way up.
Yeah, and I think that we talked about um Merrimack being a funnel to the higher up uh, programs for guys, but it's also for guys who are looking to make maybe a more lateral move to get playing time at a similar level. We saw um, Wilborn on the basketball side transferring from James Madison. He's going to look to make an impact on the front court, and then we're going to have at least for incoming freshmen, we'll have another Father Judge point guard come in on the basketball side in Rocco Westfield, and he's going to be looking to make an immediate impact, but he will be trying to follow up the crazy season that Kavere Kennedy had with the Metro Player of the Year and Metro Rookie of the Year in the same season.
Absolutely. Kyler, what do you think about that? Do you have any takes on the basketball side?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of incredible to see how well they've been able to compete, given that they haven't always had the resources, like you said. I feel like hockey has always been the number one sport, and basketball, when hockey wasn't doing well, basketball kind of overtook it for a little bit, and then hockey kind of found its momentum. But it's like, okay, we're kind of a hockey and basketball. Basketball isn't quite on hockey's level, but they're developing into a strong program that a lot of people are going to follow. And I really just like how a lot more people are engaged with it. I felt like when I first came in, people weren't really engaged with much other than the hockey because of the Hockey East. And I think that was because you had overworked people in athletics, not that people don't work hard or anything like that, but I think there's a more developed system, there's more promos, there's more just things to do and more interaction from that side. And I think Joe Gallo feeds into that a lot too, where you might see him at another event. You might see him supporting the hockey team. You're going to have him speaking to the media and telling us to get loud. You're going to have him film something before the game, like he filmed when we were going to have a snow day. And everybody went wild for that. It was the day after the Siena game, I believe, or a couple days later or whatever. So, it's like, and that was also an overtime game as well. That was a crazy game. But you're starting to see how that's developing, and I think that's also just a credit to having a great athletic director and having great coaches who want to be here. I think that is something that can't be stated enough is buy-in, having people that really believe in the programs that we have. And Joe Gallo is a great piece for that. And even with NIL changing how smaller schools operate, I'm not going to say that we're a small school. We're a mid-major, but we're a developing school. We're not the Dukes of the world or the UVMs or any of those teams that you want to put in there, North Carolina, but we do know how to get players and compete at a high level. And the last couple of years we've been knocking on the door of one or two wins away from being in March Madness. So I think to your point, we are going to be in March Madness soon. I think that NIL does change things more for basketball than it does for hockey because it makes the Dukes, the Michigans, of the world, like those good, really good teams, UConn, like all of those teams are always going to be in it more versus kind of the underdogs.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that um, they don't. I don't think that a lot of Merrimack teams really see themselves as underdogs anymore. I think that they have a certain belief that they're going to continue to compete. They want to continue to be at the top of their conferences, and if they're not, continue to improve. In terms of the improvements we've seen, we saw Merrimack baseball get their first postseason win in the MAC this year. We saw Merrimack men's lacrosse get their first postseason win in the conference this year. So again, things are building all the way around. There's been a lot of social media presence, um, athletics wide, in terms of getting to hear from the coaches and what they're trying to build. We're for the first time ever seeing Merrimack athletics and coaches go on a road show in the coming weeks with the likes of Joe Gallo, Missy Traversi, who's going into her first year as the women's basketball coach, Scott Borick, Mike Giannetti, your football head coach. So the name of the Merrimack Warriors will continue to get out there in terms of athletics, and I think that's only going to continue the pull that we're seeing in these past couple of years.
I also just think that the campus experience is just better overall. Like I think a lot more people are satisfied with kind of the direction that we're going in. Go ahead, Jack.
I want to add a connection that I just thought of. So we're obvious. So something that I noticed when I talked to Joe was he kept re saying that the Augustinian values are so important to Merrimack and the community and just everything that goes on behind the scenes. And you look at the NBA finals right now, there are only two Augustinian schools in the country, colleges, Merrimack and Villanova. And you look at that Knicks team in the finals right now, built by Villanova guys. So it's so cool. It's just a little Merrimack connection I want to make. I mean, they had 4 Villanova players from the same championship team on the team. They traded one of them away, but there's still 3: Brunson, Bridges, and Josh Hart. I mean, college buddies, and they are very connected to Merrimack, which I just think is funny.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's kind of a cool connection. But I want to kind of speak to the community part of it because I'm also an ambassador with Joey. So we give tours a lot. And one thing that I really want to like point out is that it seems like these coaches are not just and the athletic director, they're not just preaching the athletics anymore. It's not just about the athletics, it's about the community. It's about the values of helping each other. And you see that. And I think even off the ice or off the court, you meet some of these guys or gals and they really, the ones who stay especially are the ones who really love those values, buy into it. They buy into it. And I could kind of, and when I was kind of like listening to who was staying for our Hockey East championship people, I was like, who are the ones who really bought in to the values and who's going to be, I mean, playing time plays into it too, obviously, because a lot of those guys are great, but you have guys like Caden Cranston, Ty Deneau, uh, Kalen Fitzpatrick, Seamus Powell, Cam Congle. It's like, all those guys are going to stay because they bought into, helping each other out, being there for each other, and that's huge. So I just like to point that out because, sometimes at schools, like, it can be a bit more about the athletics, and I feel like it's more of like a community, and everybody is kind of welcome to join that community. And I think that's something that's very unique about how we are at Merrimack.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that especially like being able to show off the campus like Kyler and I get the opportunity to do. Community is a word that comes out pretty much every time we're showing the campus off, and I think that being able to not only talk about what we have to offer at Merrimack, but talk about our own personal experiences is a huge aspect of what pulls people into Merrimack, and I think that with how strongly they're growing, I think that the community is only going to become stronger as time goes on. But I wanted to ask both of you um, what your Hockey East postseason experience was like. Kyler, I know you were there as a fan, and Jack, you had the opportunity to cover it for the athletic department. So I wanted to get um, both of the sides of that experience, if I could.
Go ahead, Jack. I'll let you go first as the guest.
Thanks, Kyler. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, it was awesome. I mean, we were up in, I don't know exactly, the press box at the very top of the garden. So it was awesome. And I wasn't alone. There was other Merrimack people like Ollie. So it was great. It was a good community. Like as we've talked about, Marcus Antonelli was obviously up there covering for BU, but he's a Merrimack fan. Like he was rooting, so it was good to
Yeah.
be accompanied by him, and just meet all the people up there. Go through the garden media access places and go up the elevators. It was awesome. And after the game, speaking to the coaches in like a very professional press conference room, it was awesome. Talking to the UNH coach or not the UNH coach, sorry, the UMass coach and the UConn coach was even better. I mean, it was after like it definitely sucked for him, but it was you could just tell the heartbreak and the like not in a bad way, but it was the passion and like you see that side of the sport live professional. It's a like kind of behind the scenes experience and them being being able to speak to Coach Scott Borick and the triumph that comes with it. There's two sides to it, so to be able to experience both of the sides, um, and I have friends that work for UMass is media, and it was heartbreaking for them, but for us, it was amazing. And you see both sides of that. I can't um, state that enough. Like you see the emotions behind everything, and it was a great experience.
I'd say, like, for the fan experience, it's a little bit different, obviously, but those were home games for us, if I'm being honest, because, like I said about the community part of it, they were like, everybody's got to show up. And everybody, their mother, father, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa, the dog, without the dog, everybody but the dog was there. And I think, it's like, I saw a lot of friends who've graduated and people who were seniors, people who were juniors, people who were freshmen, people who were sophomores. Like everybody showed up for both games. And, I had the pleasure of being able to, I went down a little bit early on Friday because I knew that I didn't want to deal with kind of the crowds and getting onto the trains and all of that. So I went down a little bit early, about like 10 a.m. or so, or maybe noon. It was about like 11 o'clock or noon, and went with my buddies to, local pizza shop. Then met up with everybody at the hangout at the Greatest Bar, and just got to see everybody, and it was packed. And then to have Merrimack people, even staffers, people that we work with that come in after I was leaving. So, it was kind of a great experience from the jump. And I noticed how our band section was twice as big as everybody else's. Our fans showed up, and we don't have the most amount of people who go to school, who go to school at our school, quite like, the UConns or the UMass Amherst, but we show up for each other. And, that was really what I wanted to emphasize, because I saw people who graduated 2 years ago, people who graduated, the year before, and it was kind of like, seeing all my friends all over again, and like Merrimack reunion. And then to see us win that first game, it's like, okay, we had that overtime win. We've only lost 4 or 5 games in the second half of the year. We're looking really hot. And, we're just, Lundgren's playing great. We have a chance tomorrow. Like, oh my goodness, we won this game. We have a chance. And that Saturday game, there was a lot of buzz around the school. I think there was a lot more excitement, and certainly there was a lot of uh, activity on campus, and you could just tell the energy was going our way. It was really like a home game, and I think, having that, I don't think we would have won without everybody being there. And I think what was special about both of those games is hugging everybody after. I sat in a different section, but then I'd go out in the hallway. We did it. We did it, guys. Like, we're doing this thing. And then to get back to Merrimack, and it was just a late night, but I think, and I can also claim that I've you know that I've seen and obtained possession of the trophy at times, and it was just kind of a really special moment. And I don't think I've ever felt any emotion quite like it, and I don't know if we will. I don't know if we will, but I think we have a good chance next year. And it was one of those moments I just wanted to take in, because you're like, this is so surreal. You're sitting up there, and it's like, is this really happening? So I think from that point of view, it was really awesome. Athletics encouraged everybody to go, and we, outdid ourselves for the size of the school. So I think that's something to really be proud of.
Yeah, for sure. I think that you captured really what the buzz was like, and I think it was especially evident the next day back on campus. We were working at Admitted Students Day, and there was just a very different type of buzz and excitement that was around campus that day, and then everybody was talking about watching the North Dakota game in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Obviously, we knew that was going to be a tougher game, but the fact that Merrimack was just representing the school on the national stage at the Division 1 level, um, for the second time in the year, because we had the Merrimack and Siena game on the basketball side be nationally televised as well. But just multiple opportunities to show Merrimack athletics on the national stage, due to the success that they've had athletically, um, was great. And Kyler, I'm also happy that you mentioned the community aspect, because this is something that Jack and I have talked about throughout the season, is that um people have a connection to Merrimack even after they graduate. So, Jack, with this being the final year that you covered as a student for Merrimack, I don't think that you could have asked for much better in terms of what we were able to experience. And I think that the community that's built around Merrimack, and you can speak to this personally too, but there will always be a connection between all Merrimack students and their experiences related to athletics.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like Merrimack alumni don't go anywhere. Like Joe Foley, a big talking point of his was that Merrimack people look out for each other. Like I'm at a place called Toro Media right now in Wilmington. the CMO there is a Merrimack kid, and that's how the connection kind of happened. So Merrimack roots, and athletically, like obviously I would have loved to see us go to March Madness, but for that MAC championship game, it was spring break. I was down in Miami. I was at a restaurant, and after we had dinner, we went over to the bar, and there was a Sienna fan there. And it was crazy. I mean, it was good to have like somebody to talk to, but it was heartbreaking, it was really heartbreaking to lose that game. The last basketball game that I'm watching as a student, we're one game away from March Madness, so close, and we lost. And there was a Sienna fan right there. So it sucked, but he was nice. And you meet people everywhere. You go anywhere, you're always going to meet Merrimack people or people connected to the school. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, and like I said, Joe Foley, a big talking point of his on that podcast was Merrimack people, and he's only been here for a year, so he's learned it in the past year. These are his takeaways being here for the past year. Merrimack people look out for each other. It's a real community, and like you guys were talking about. I mean, we've talked about it the whole time. We don't win maybe half of those basketball games. Credit to the team, but 9-0 at home, unbelievable, and so many close games. And then Hockey East, the championship, even more so. I mean, we're playing the 2 seed UMass, the 3 seed UConn, I believe, something like that.
Yeah,
beat
Providence was one.
And beat the 1 seed Providence earlier on as well. So taking down the top,
right, and
the top three. The
we
top
beat
3
UMass
seeds en route to a win is unbelievable. Sorry, go ahead. As soon as we get you back.
Unbelieving those two
there we go.
Sorry, I don't know if I cut out. Okay.
Go ahead.
At the Garden, upsetting those two teams, number 2 UMass, number 3 UConn. The home crowd played such a big part in that. Like, we don't win without the community showing up, as we've talked about. And it's like the key, it's this defining staple of Merrimack College is the community.
Yeah.
And it translates to athletics.
I think to wrap up, we've already kind of talked about the next steps. Kyler, you mentioned the next steps for men's hockey as they look to kind of build on their championship from a year ago. Jack, I wanted to get your thoughts on how Joe Gallo has rebuilt this roster. I know you and I talked about it for my end of the year project, but let's sort of rewrap those thoughts for the listeners on how Joe Gallo is working on rebuilding his current roster after having the success of Kaveri Kennedy and Ernest Shelton, Casey Wakazi, and he'll be without Ty Dorsett. How the rebuild of that roster has gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I'm not worried. In Gallo, I trust. It's like in Brad Stevens, we trust. Like we're fine. We're fine. We have such a good. We're lucky enough to be in Boston and at Merrimack, where the programs and the coaches and the people running things are so elite at their jobs that we never have to worry. Like last year, we came in with 5 new starters after losing Bud Clark, after losing all those guys. 5 new starters. We have guys, that always come in as new guys, whether they be a rookie, whether they be a transfer. And we have guys like Ty Dorsett who step up and elevate their play and are ready for the moment. And to me, it all comes back to Joe Gallo and his preparation. He puts a team together ready to compete, ready to exceed expectations, always ready to bounce back and never fall off. And I mean, 2 years into our reign in the MAC, and we have the best record in the conference. We've already been to the championship game. It's unbelievable. I'm very excited to watch guys like Denver Anglin because we watch guys like Andres Marrero and Todd Brogna come in as transfers, and they're just unbelievable. Casey Wakazi, transfer. So we get guys like Denver Anglin, and we get a guy like, who else do we get as a transfer? Elijah Wilborn. And then we get rookies like Rocco Westfield from Father Judge. They trust Joe Gallo. They see what he's done, and they trust him just like we do as Merrimack fans. So I'm very pleased with what he's put together. Obviously, we're not going to have Ty Dorsett due to injury. That sucks, but it's always just next man up, and he'll be back, and he'll be, a leader in that locker room. I'm very
Yeah, and
excited. I think we're gonna have another season atop the MAC.
yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that because obviously, due to injury, Dorsett's not going to find his way onto the court, but he's been a part of this program for years now, so he can kind of be that extra assistant coach, you could say. And I'm excited to see guys like Elijah Wilborn, who's going to get some center minutes now after Casey Lukazi transferred, but we saw limited minutes from Dylan Villette during the season, and then you had guys. You have someone like Todd Brogna, who's now going to get his opportunity um, to play his traditional power forward. So there's going to be another comfort level that he gets with that, and he gets to play a traditional stretch four rather than having to be one of the centers on this team. And I think that they're going to be looking for someone to bring energy off the bench. That last year was Casey Ugokazi at the center spot, but I wouldn't be shocked knowing the offensive prowess that guys like Rocco Westfield and Quinn Kwasniak have when they get their opportunities. I wouldn't be shocked if that's where the spark comes from, even though it's going to be on a different part of the floor
I
this
have
year.
I have a couple things to mention about returners, like you said, Todd Brogna, like you said, Quinn Kwasniak. Talking to a student manager for the past couple of years, Liam McLaughlin, who's going to be back. I mean, he tells me about Quinn Kwasniak. That kid's a hooper, like unbelievable shooter. He's going to get his opportunity and he's going to succeed because he's a translatable skill. I mean, he's an unbelievable shooter. You put him out on the court, he's probably going to be the best shooter on the court. So, not to set too high expectations, but I mean, the kid led Ohio. You guys know LeBron James went to high school basketball in Ohio. Well, so did Quinn Kwasniak. He passed LeBron James as the all-time leading scorer in the state of Ohio in high school basketball. So I mean, the kid's a legit hooper, and he's gonna get his opportunities this next year, and he's gonna hoop based on what I've heard from inside the locker room. And then Todd Brogna, I can't speak highly enough of that guy as a player specifically. I don't know him too well as a person, though he's been nothing but nice. But he had times where his confidence was definitely wavering. He couldn't knock down his shot, and that's supposed to be his best skill. That's what he was so elite at Stonehill. Super close to 50, 40, 90, and he comes in having to play the 5 in the MAC, a tougher conference. So he was tasked with so much: a shooter, a ball handler, a passer, a defender, and a rebounder. He's gonna, be freed up a little bit. Probably, like you said, Wilborn will play some center minutes. Brogna will be able to step out to the 4, a lot less pressure on him. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a all MAC season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what we've all talked about is that Merrimack athletics as a whole are only getting better, and we're gonna keep an eye on everything as the year continues to grow. Obviously, some of these rosters are still gonna be filled out in the summer months, but a lot of these teams continue to be back where they expect to be back where they were, and some looking to make the jump to competing higher up in the conference. And we'll be able to talk about that as it goes on. Jack, I know that although you won't be there as a student, you'll be keeping up with everything Merrimack, especially on the basketball side, and we'd be happy to have you back when we're on the WMCK airways again, talking about what we hope is a strong season coming up for Merrimack basketball as a whole, and we're also excited to see what the improvement is like on the women's side. We got the chance to meet Missy Traversy at her introductory press conference. And I'm personally excited just with the attitude that she brought to that, what we could see in terms of their season coming up as well.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I'd love to come back on. This is awesome. I love this pod. I love you guys. Like, this is amazing. So definitely can't wait to be back on. And I'll definitely see you guys at Merrimack games. Though I'm not a student, I'll still be there. You guys know that.
Yeah, I know. You'll
Oh,
find your way
absolutely.
there. You'll find your way there soon enough. Yeah, but thank you for coming on. It was great to get the chance to talk to you. Before we head off, I know that you've been following the NBA Finals very closely. So on the other side of the Titletown rundown, I wanted to get your quick rest of the NBA Finals prediction before we head off.
Yeah. And real quick, just want to mention Missy Traversi, amazing coach. She is awesome. Super confident, super determined, super just sharp. She's gonna be amazing. I don't know how a school like Army lets her go, especially with the success she had, but that's a conversation for a different day. We're glad to have her at Merrimack. But the NBA Finals, first, I was super glad to see the Knicks win last night. I respect Wemby and the Spurs, and I know Boston fans aren't supposed to like New York, but me personally, I've never been bothered by the New York Knicks. Besides last year, they've never really been in our way, so I've never had the animosity towards them that I've had towards a Philly. But
Sure, I
that
could see that.
I was happy to see Brunson hoop. I do think the Spurs are going to take this series still, maybe 5 or 6 games, just because Wembanyama is the best basketball player I've ever laid my eyes on. That's it.
Yeah,
The rest of the
yeah.
team's great. Harper is unbelievable. Castle, all those guys, but Wembanyama, I'm not picking against him.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that because one of the discussions that we had on our episode from yesterday was how to defend Wembanyama, and I mentioned that having Mitchell Robinson back on the Knicks side can end up proving to be a huge thing because you're not then forced to have Cat on Wembanyama the entire time, and the more that you can throw different things at Wembanyama, maybe that leads to something. I know he's such an alien in terms of his skill set that you don't know how you can really stop him, but the more that you send at him, maybe there's a chance that you do end up stringing a couple stops together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Robinson, best offensive rebounder in the league, athletic, physical, 7-footer. He did a great job in his minutes. But credit to Cat too. I mean, he was really good last night defensively, which surprised me. I didn't know if he was going to be able to, stay out of foul trouble but they did a good job. We'll see if they continue with the rest of the series. It's going to be tough.
I also think that the Spurs are are going to be the new young team to watch on the rise for the next few years, kind of like Merrimack Athletics. But I just wanted to give a couple more thoughts to Merrimack Athletics as a rising senior. I think it's a great time to be a senior because I think basketball will be right back to pretty much close to where they were last year, and I think those promotional things will continue to happen. And I also think that we have a chance to go back to TD Garden next year. I don't know if they'll win the whole thing, but I think they're going to be in that Final Four. And if they get hot enough at the end and we bring enough people, I don't see why not, because we brought in a goaltender from Minnesota State. He's played at Bentley and Minnesota State and really hasn't gotten his chance. So I think you're going to see a lot more of what you saw this past year. So I'm really looking forward to that. And thank you again, Jack, for coming on.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you guys.
absolutely. That's gonna do it for this episode of the Titletown Rundown, the Merrimack Athletics Special. Jack, for people that are interested, they can check out your sit down with Joe Foley on your YouTube page, correct?
Absolutely. Jacked Up Podcast. Go check it out. And check out the
Sound
interview with Kavir Kennedy.
Oh, I forgot about that. But
No, no, no.
good call on that one. But thank you again for hopping on, and I'm sure we'll continue to give updates with Merrimack Athletics as the rest of the summer goes on, and we'll be back in full swing with everything Merrimack. Back on the WMCK airwaves as well, but we're not going to stop on the YouTube side either. So we'll be back on Monday for another traditional episode of the Titletown Rundown. Once again, Jack, thank you for hopping on. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your night, everybody.